Alright guys, what's going on? It's Josh Rosenberg from Up Your Attraction. I got a good friend of mine here. His name is Magic, and if you haven't heard of Magic yet, you will very soon. You really got to keep an eye out for this guy. Earlier this summer, we were both speaking at a big 3-day pickup conference with the top speakers in the world there. I had never heard of him before. I sat in and I watched his speech, and after about 20 minutes when he was wrapping up, I said, I have to go and I got to meet this guy. He is light years beyond some of the biggest names out there. So we went out, grabbed a beer. We realized our training systems are very complementary of each other. So I'm very glad that he came all the way to New York from California today, and I couldn't miss this opportunity to create a video to send out to you guys. Magic, thank you very much for being here, buddy.
Thanks for having me, man. Always a pleasure.
Thank you, man. So, one thing that I know you specialize in, and I get a lot of requests doing, is how to physically escalate well with a girl. How to get her comfortable with the idea of being touched, of kissing you, of getting close, and then using that to help you get her out of the nightclub, the bar, the party, wherever it is, and basically be better at flirting and get her, sexually attracted to you.
The first thing that people really need to realize is that touching is very natural. It's like we were born. The first thing that babies want is to be touched. There are like studies which show that if babies are not held by mom, when they're very little, they end up growing with a lot of intimacy issues. There was a study in France a few years back where they sent two group of peers to approach women. One of them tapped women on their arm gently before asking for a dance, versus the other group didn't. And the researchers concluded they found that men who touched women before asking for a dance had significantly higher ratio of yes than men who didn't touch women. Mm-hmm. And the reason for that was when men touched women, perceived it as a dominant behavior, which made them to comply with the request.
Sure.
So touching is very natural. In fact, there was a coach, I think, and some football coach here in US, I don't remember exactly what team, and his coaching method was also all touch. He would use tactile to train his team, and he thinks it's a very successful method. So touching is very natural. The reason we talk about this, the reason we even have this as an issue is either we're shy, we grew up with some in a very, by conservative, I don't mean like a politically conservative or backward kind of thing, but it's like people who weren't very comfortable touching each other, or people who discourage touching. So we grew up with the idea that touching is not okay.
And you're told from a young age, when you're in school, keep your hands to yourself. Now, teachers a lot of times mean that because kids can get hurt or whatnot, but that doesn't really make too much sense to you when you're 6.
Exactly.
So to hear later on that you should be touching other people, it almost sounds kind of alien, counterintuitive.
Absolutely. And touching can convey a lot of stuff. So that's why touching is really important. The reason I brought this whole introduction was so people understand that what we're trying to do is nothing that we're not supposed to do. It's not something we're trying to sneak because it's, it shouldn't be done.
Right.
What we're doing is we're trying to tell ourselves, this is the natural behavior. And if you think about it, if you think of any of your good friend, any person you're really good friends with, male, female, doesn't matter, there will be a lot of touching there. It could be, if you shake hands with your guy friend that you're really close to, you always have an extended handshake. So if you go to someone and you just go, hey, what's up, bro, and it's always like this, right? So this touching came in there. Versus the same thing you'll be afraid to do to a woman when you meet her for the first time, because you're like, that's too much touching.
Well, one thing that politicians do, especially when they're learning about how to appeal to the general public, is if I go to shake your hand, now pretend I'm running for an office, I do what's called a 3-point touch. I'm going to touch you here right on the hand. I'm going to move my hand up to your elbow, and it's going to go up. Oh, God bless
Excuse me, that's your cat.
Well, I'm not going to not touch any slimy shoulder, but you get the point. And what happens is you're setting off a lot of, your body has a lot of nerve endings. So touching a person, you're stimulating those in a way. You're getting them comfortable with being touched. And when somebody feels, comfortable being touched, they're going to feel comfortable around you.
Exactly.
It's more appealing. I mean, think about, your best friend. Would you have any care in the world if your best friend came up and gave you a big bear hug?
Exactly.
No, it's inviting. So, I notice with a lot of guys is when they go and they meet a woman, here's what they do. Hi, it's nice to meet you. Great. So, blah, 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 what's your name? And they try to keep a distance and try to figure out, okay, now how can I slowly move in get more of a touch? How
Right.
can I put my hand on her knee or maybe the small of her back? And it's really difficult and off-putting when she's not used to you touching her to do something like that. Now, touching someone on the elbow is about as unsexual as you can get. But if someone doesn't like the idea of you touching them, then that becomes very intrusive.
You know, here's the thing: most people are okay being touched. If somebody is not like, if somebody is objecting to your touch, either you're touching them with the wrong state of energy, or what you're saying is not making sense. So what happens, or the way you're touching them is also may not be right. So what happens is like, if I come to you and I go, "Hey Josh, how are you?" That's like pretty creepy, right?
Yeah.
Whereas I come, "Hey man, what's going on, dude?" So my energy, because I was high energy right now, you won't even notice the touch. So when you meet someone for the first time, you have to go with a little higher energy.
Right.
And so what that does is it starts to build comfort where you're touching me 3-4 times, but because you're high energy, that touch I didn't notice that much. And so now I become comfortable with your touches. And when you get sexual, that's when you lower your energy. Because if I go, "I wanna fuck you," that doesn't make sense, right? It's like,
Yeah.
"Oh my god, girl, I'm taking you home right now." Because it'll work because now we're already on the sexual level. So a lot of it has to do with energy calibration. And the second thing is the touching. You know, if I go it's like, "Hey, you know, you're really pretty," and if I'm like all shaking and trembling, it's going to be very uncomfortable. Or I see guys resting their fingers, or they're just going to go, "Hey, really nice meeting you." See, if I do this, you can see it's how awkward it is and how, you know, the choppy and jerky moves. But if I just go, "Hey man, you know what, I'm really glad that we're doing this together," it's going to feel way more natural,
Right.
way more comfortable.
The more you're aware, if I'm touching you, the more I'm aware that I'm touching you, the more that I'm emphasizing it, and the more that I'm paying attention to it, the more you're going to realize something's up. You're going to think, "Wait, why was that a touch? It felt like he forced it rather than it
Exactly.
being natural."